I am Skylar, 31 years old, and last Saturday I walked into what was supposed to be a celebration of love and longevity, my sister Savannah's 10-year anniversary party. The Bellevue Hotel's grand ballroom was dripping in elegance with towering ice swans flanking a champagne fountain and chandeliers reflecting off a sea of crystal. As guests toasted the perfect couple, I found myself standing alone near the window, nursing my glass of champagne. I excused myself for a quick trip to the bathroom, needing a break from Savannah's perfectly curated world, where everything, including her affection, felt like performance art. But when I returned, everything shifted. From across the room, I saw her standing beside my table, her reflection clearly visible in the glass pane. She leaned over my untouched drink, glanced around, and with a sly little smile dropped something small into the champagne. My stomach twisted. My sister had always been competitive, manipulative, even, but this, I froze adrenaline flooding my limbs. She had not seen me. She thought I was still in the restroom. I had a split second to make a decision, and every instinct from our twisted childhood screamed at me to act. I walked casually to the table and smiled at her, masking the nausea in my gut. Without hesitation, I picked up the tainted glass and in a smooth motion swapped it with Jared's her husband's untouched drink nearby. She smiled sweetly and walked away, believing I would soon be making a fool of myself on the dance floor or vomiting in the restroom. What she did not know was that I had seen everything. I had just set into motion a reckoning years in the making. And as the violins played softly in the background and Savannah posed for photos, I stood there in that ballroom, not as her little sister desperate for approval, but as a woman who had just drawn a line. If you have ever faced betrayal from your own blood, you understand sometimes the people smiling at you across the table are the same ones holding the knife. The moment Savannah disappeared into the crowd, I set the empty champagne flute down and felt my hands tremble, not from fear but fury. This was not some high school prank or petty jealousy. She had tried to drug me, my own sister, and no one else knew. Not our parents who floated through the party, smiling like paid actors. Not Jared, who had just unknowingly sipped the very drink, meant to sabotage me. As I glanced across the ballroom, I saw Savannah laughing with her friends, like nothing had happened. It made my skin crawl. What had she planned for me? Public humiliation, slurred speech during a toast. Or worse, I needed to stay calm alert. But deep inside, a storm was building. This was not just about tonight. It was years of buried slights, gaslighting, and cruelty, all wrapped in pearls and designer gowns. That sip Jared took. It was the first crack in Savannah's perfect facade. If you have ever had to stay quiet while someone in your own family tried to rewrite reality, you know what it feels like to burn in silence. Right now, if you have ever felt betrayed by someone close, comment yes and subscribe to this channel. You are not alone, and trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. I watched Jared closely. 10 minutes after his toast, he loosened his tie, rubbing his neck as if the air had thickened. He blinked more than usual and squinted at the string lights above the bar. Savannah had not noticed yet. She was too busy being the star of her own celebration. But I saw the shift in him, the subtle unraveling. He began to sway slightly when he stood still, and during a conversation with our uncle, he completely forgot what he was saying. My heart raced. Whatever she had slipped into that drink was not just a mild sedative, it was working. I felt sick with guilt and satisfaction all at once. I did not want Jared to suffer, but I needed him to see her clearly for the first time. This was never about revenge. It was about revealing the truth. And the truth was walking through that ballroom right now, wearing a smile and a ticking clock. Savannah had declared war without knowing it, and for the first time in my life, I was not backing down. I was watching everything, remembering everything, and waiting, because the fall always starts with a single sip. Jared's decline was not dramatic at first. It was the kind of thing only someone paying very close attention would notice, like I was. He stopped smiling mid-sentence. He rubbed his temples between conversations. His usual smooth charisma faded into this glassy-eyed confusion. I could almost hear Savannah's voice in my head. Skylar always makes things about her. That was her favorite line growing up whenever I dared to point out how she twisted the truth. But tonight, the evidence was not buried under charm or manipulation. It was right there, unraveling before everyone. I stood at the edge of the dance floor watching as Jared staggered while trying to follow the rhythm of a slow song. Savannah rushed over to support him, trying to mask her panic with a plastered-on smile. Guests looked concerned. Someone asked if he needed water. But I knew what was coming, and I knew Savannah did not expect it. That was the moment I decided to take control. As Jared stumbled toward the side doors with Savannah gripping his arm, I stepped in. Calmly, deliberately, I took the microphone from the DJ table, tapping it twice, until the feedback caught everyone's attention. "Sorry to interrupt," I said, voice steady, "but I think everyone deserves to know what Savannah put in my drink tonight, before Jared drank it instead." The room fell into stunned silence. Savannah spun around like she had been slapped. "What are you talking about?" She snapped, her voice shrill and desperate. But the damage was done. Eyes were already on her. I pointed toward the mirrored glass beside our table. "You were not careful. I saw you." And now so did he. Jared, dazed and drenched in sweat, looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. The guests gasped. My parents stood, frozen mouths parted in disbelief. Savannah tried to deny it, but her trembling hands and pale face did all the talking. She had lost control of the story, and for the first time I held the narrative. No more quiet suffering. No more pretending it was all in my head. The silence had shattered, and as Jared was helped into an ambulance, I felt a strange kind of peace. Savannah's lies were finally collapsing, and this time she would not get to rewrite the ending. The silence after my accusation was deafening. It was as if the entire ballroom had stopped breathing. Savannah's face contorted, not into confusion or concern, but pure panic. For a moment she opened her mouth to deny everything, but no words came out. Instead, she let out a breathless laugh, the kind that only comes when the mask has cracked. "You are insane," she hissed, stepping closer. "You have always been jealous of me, Skylar." Her voice shook, but not with sadness, only fury. I did not move. I simply looked toward the mirrored wall, the same one where I had seen her sabotage me. Guests turned their eyes, searching for their own reflections in that cold surface. The room buzzed with shifting glances, murmurs, judgment. Jared, still leaning against the doorframe, managed a weak whisper. "What did you do, Savannah?" She froze. That voice, his voice broke something in her. She tried to reach for him, but he recoiled. "You drugged my drink," he asked louder this time, though slurred. That was meant for Skylar. All eyes turned to her again. Savannah's expression collapsed. She looked like a statue melting under heat. I was scared," she stammered. "You have been pulling away from me for months, and she always takes the spotlight. I thought maybe if she got sick or left early, you and I could talk, could reconnect." The room erupted, not in applause or chaos, but horrified disbelief. Her confession, so calm, so chilling, felt like a slap across the face to everyone who had once admired her. My father shook his head slowly, as if trying to understand how his golden child had become a stranger. My mother began to cry softly, not for Savannah, but for the reality she could no longer ignore. The illusion was gone, and in its place stood the truth, naked and undeniable. Savannah tried to run, but no one followed. The police arrived shortly after, responding to the anonymous call someone had placed during the commotion. Jared gave his statement. I gave mine. And Savannah. She sat on the steps outside alone, her mascara streaked and hands shaking, not from fear of arrest, but from losing the only thing she ever truly cared about: control. And this time, there was no one left to protect her from herself. The ride to the hospital felt like the longest 30 minutes of my life. Jared was semi-conscious, in the ambulance, eyes fluttering as they tried to keep him awake. I rode behind in my own car, staring at the red and white lights cutting through the night like a warning no one could ignore. At the ER, the doctors confirmed what I had feared. Whatever Savannah slipped into that drink had real dangerous effects. It had caused his blood pressure to drop, rapidly muddled his coordination, and could have caused cardiac complications had he consumed more. That was the final crack in the mirror Savannah had spent a lifetime polishing. Jared pressed charges the next morning. I was at the hospital when he made the call. I did not urge him one way or the other. He looked at me with glassy, exhausted eyes and said, "This isn't about revenge. This is about safety." And just like that, it was done. Savannah, of course, tried to do damage control. She called my phone 27 times in one day, leaving voicemails that swung wildly between desperate apologies and venomous accusations. My father wanted to pretend it never happened. "You've humiliated the family," he snapped, when I refused to retract my statement. But my mother surprised me. For the first time in my life, she stood beside me and said quietly, "No, Savannah humiliated herself." I had never felt so hurt and so vindicated in the same breath. Within a week, Jared filed for legal separation. The story hit our local social circles faster than wildfire. The golden couple finished. The perfect daughter exposed. Savannah withdrew from everything: her job, her friends, even our parents' weekly dinners. But still, she refused to take responsibility. In her mind, I had stolen her husband, her spotlight, her narrative. What she could never grasp was that all I ever wanted was peace, not attention, not power. Just peace. Yet peace, I realized, only comes after truth. And while my family fractured, I felt whole for the first time. Not because Savannah fell, but because I finally stopped shrinking. The silence was over. The pretending was over. And so was her grip on all of us. One by one, we were waking up. And there was no going back. Savannah finally agreed to therapy, but not out of remorse, out of necessity. The charges Jared pressed were serious, and her lawyer advised that showing progress might mitigate the consequences. She checked into a private mental health facility upstate, a place our family had whispered about for years, but never dared acknowledge publicly. 2 weeks in, she was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. It was a label she resisted at first, like everything else that did not fit her curated image. But the mirror was broken now. There was no hiding behind pearls and polite smiles. Not anymore. Our family therapist invited all of us to one joint session. I almost declined. But curiosity and maybe some thread of compassion pulled me in. Savannah sat across from me in a chair too stiff for comfort, her eyes swollen not from crying, but from the weight of exposure. She did not apologize, not directly. Instead, she said I felt like I was disappearing. Like you were always in the corner of my spotlight, waiting to take it. I wanted to be seen for once, completely. Her voice cracked halfway through. It would have been easier if she screamed or blamed me. But this quiet unraveling felt more dangerous because it came from a place that sounded human. I listened. I did not interrupt. And when the room fell silent, I said, "You were always seen, Savannah. But you never saw anyone else." My father shifted uncomfortably, as if truth itself made him itch. My mother's eyes brimmed with tears. Not for Savannah. For all the years we pretended this family was not burning from the inside out. The therapist suggested we work toward reconciliation, but I was not ready. I told Savannah that healing did not mean forgetting, that trust was not a reset button. She nodded, and for the first time, she did not argue. She just sat there nodding slowly, like someone who finally tasted consequences. As we left the building, my mother reached for my hand. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner," she whispered. I squeezed her fingers back. I was not sure if I believed her, but in that moment, I needed to believe someone was learning. Savannah would not return home. She planned to move to Seattle after treatment. And for once, distance felt like grace, not abandonment. 6 months have passed since that night, and nothing is the same. Savannah followed through. She moved to Seattle after completing her inpatient therapy. We have not spoken since our last family session, though she sends the occasional holiday card. I read them, then placed them in a drawer I never opened twice. Forgiveness, I am learning, is not a doorway you walk through. It is a hallway with no clear end, and I am still walking. My parents remain divided. My mother tries to rebuild, while my father avoids anything that forces discomfort. Jared finalized the divorce last month. He sent me a quiet thank you letter, handwritten with one line that stayed with me. You woke me up. I still think about that sometimes, how it took a single sip, a single night to collapse a decade of lies. As for me, I finally stopped looking over my shoulder. I started hiking again. Adopted a dog named Clementine. Life is not louder without Savannah. It is quieter, but clearer. I do not know if we will ever speak again. I do not know if healing means reunion or respectful distance. But I do know this: I am no longer the girl waiting for her sister's approval. I'm a woman who chose the truth, even when it cost me the illusion of family harmony. If you have ever been gaslit, overlooked, or silenced by the people who should have loved you most, know this: your voice matters. Your boundaries are valid. And the moment you stop shrinking is the moment you start living. Comment yes. If you have ever had to walk away from a toxic family bond to protect your peace, and do not forget to subscribe for more true stories that speak the truth no one else dares to say.